Yeah. And I just want to say, after I made that leap, the year that followed was brutal. And
Yeah.
I made almost no money. When I think back on the tax return from that 2014 year, I I can't even believe it. I mean, it was really tough. And I knew that it would be, but like you said, you can't really know how it's going to be because you don't know what you don't know. You have to have faith that you're going to push through no matter what, and that no matter what happens, you're going to figure a way to make it work, and be prepared to fight whatever comes your way.
Yeah, the courage and the resilience and the determination it takes. These are, such inspirational things that we hear from all these entrepreneurs that we sit down with. And I think it's so cool to tell those stories. Yo, 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 yo. Welcome to the Find Your Freedom podcast. Doug and I wanted to take a moment to let you know why we started the Find Your Freedom podcast, who we are, and what our vision is for the Find Your Freedom podcast. All right, Doug, let's get it right off the bat. I want to know, what did you think when I said, hey, bro, cousin, best friend, let's start a podcast together?
I thought, what the hell are you thinking? I was completely caught off guard. It was out of left field. And I really initially was not into it. Did that come across?
Yeah, I think, I thought there was no chance that it was going to happen with your initial reaction. But as with most entrepreneurs, I was persistent and followed up a couple times. I think it's important to clarify for the listeners that this is way out of our comfort zone. This is not something that we ever thought about really doing, but our goal is to provide resources to entrepreneurs and a real roadmap for how we were able to find our freedom. And we every week are going to interview a new entrepreneur and tell their incredible story of, because every entrepreneur has these crazy stories about they were working these corporate jobs and they were unfulfilled and unhappy and they were looking for other opportunities and they wanted their life to look like this, but their life was currently like this, and they weren't having enough time with their kids, and they didn't have enough time to do the things they wanted. And then they had this idea, and then things happened, and then they met someone, and then this thing happened, and then they made a left turn down this road. And it's just like there's all these crazy twists and turns of every entrepreneur story, and it's so entertaining and inspirational to me. And I've had all these really cool conversations with people over the years, and that was the whole idea of the podcast. Let's share these stories with people who are interested in changing their lives. And that I think it's just so inspirational talking to those people. And I know you were one of those people that always thought, hey, I'm going to be an entrepreneur.
I did kind of always feel that was going to be my path eventually. It's funny because you are working the corporate gig because that's kind of the path that's laid out in front of you that most people do, most common. And in the back of my head the entire time, though, I was planning my escape and waiting for the right moment. What do I need before I can go and take that leap? And really, it was 5 years of working at an asset management company in a cubicle, having a lot of success there in that job, hitting the 6-figure mark, which initially is cool, but long term doesn't provide that fulfillment that you and I wanted for ourselves and for our careers and our families. And so eventually I met a guy who was an investor already. And my thought process when I met him was, this guy's only a few years ahead of me. He's already crushing it. I want to be doing what he's doing. How do I get out of this cubicle and go do what he's doing? And so my idea was to ask him out to dinner, and he shut me down. And I could have at that point
Wait. Did he shut you down harder or softer than you shutting me down on starting a podcast?
About the same.
To calibrate. Okay.
About the same. Yeah.
Hard close. Okay.
Yeah. So he kind of shut the door politely, but it was like, he's like, I'm good. I'm doing fine. My business is successful. I don't really need to bring anybody on. I don't need a partner at this time. And I said, all right, cool. And, a year goes by, circle back to him. And this time he agrees to go out to dinner with me. So we go and we meet up at Yard House, never seen each other in person, talked on the phone many, many times. And the dinner was, let me talk to you about what I've done. Let me talk to you about what I think I can bring. And he shared with me his story on how he built up to where he was at. And I knew pretty instantly during that dinner that, okay, I want to work with this guy and this is what I want to do. Did we leave there with a business plan? No. Did we leave there with a partnership agreement? We did not. But we agreed to meet again, did a second dinner. And at that point was when I made the decision, I'm going to take the leap. The time is right. I'm going to go to work with this guy.
And what I love about your story is that he was someone you had worked at in your corporate job. He was one of the people buying the assets from you. So he knew how good you were, and he knew how strong your skill set was in the niche of real estate that he was in. So it's a cool way that your partnership formed, because you already had built up these years and years of working really hard and being sort of best in class in what you do. And then when you wanted to go off on your own, you already had the skills. You just had to find the opportunity. And it's such a different way that it happened for me, because I was so corporate. Through college, I worked at a Starwood hotel, opening like W's and Westons, traveling around, and I got the opportunity to open a hotel in Turks and Caicos. Ran that as the GM for a few years. But all that time, I was just kind of grinding, keeping my head down, working long hours. And then all of a sudden, one day I had a paradigm shift. I thought, how am I going to live the life that I've always thought about, spending a lot of time with my kids? I want to spend a lot of time with my family. I want to travel. My current job is not aligning with that. This is not sustainable for me to keep working in this way. And I thought, you know what? I need to start my own hotel management company so that I can have more freedom.
I think identifying that misalignment between what you have, the path that you're on, and where you ultimately want to go is such a key piece of working towards that decision to make the leap.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think it's really interesting, because I talk to people, and I know we've had this conversation, talk to people every week. It's just like, yeah, people are in these jobs and they're, if they're not feeling fulfilled, or they're working way harder than they planned on, so it's taking away from what their real goals and priorities are in their life. That's really what we're hoping to provide from this podcast, is give those people the resources, the information, who people have done what they want to do. If I was corporate for so long and I gave up, I sacrificed so much. I love the goal for this podcast, which is really a passion project for you and me, is to the people that are on the side where I was working these corporate jobs, keeping our head down and just thinking, this isn't going to work for me long term. I want to spend more time with my family, whatever your priorities are. We want to provide those people interesting, inspirational stories from all these entrepreneurs who have done it a million different ways. Everyone that we talk to has such a different story. And I think that is what's so incredible about entrepreneurs, is they see a problem and they find a way to solve it in a creative way, but almost never does it go the way that they planned. I mean, yours didn't go the way you planned. Mine, being a hotel management guy in my background, now I've started multiple dietary supplement companies, a software company, a VC startup for a FinTech company, and I still have my own hotel management company, and we have a few other that are in the works. It's just like, these are things I never even thought about, but when you work hard and you build up a skill set, you're able to use that, kind of across the board. You just have to find the opportunity once you have the skills to do that. So I think this is going to be a really interesting way that we tell everyone's story. And I know that you have that same exact thing.
Yeah. And I just want to say, after I made that leap, the year that followed was brutal. And I made almost no money. When I think back on the tax return from that 2014 year, I can't even believe it. I mean, it was really tough. And I knew that it would be, but like you said, you can't really know how it's going to be, because you don't know what you don't know. You have to have faith that you're going to push through no matter what. And that no matter what happens, you're going to figure a way to make it work, and be prepared to fight whatever comes your way.
Yeah, the courage and the resilience and the determination it takes. These are, such inspirational things that we hear from all these entrepreneurs that we sit down with. And I think it's so cool to tell those stories. I now look at my life, over the last 10 years. My oldest daughter's 5. She's in kindergarten. My youngest daughter's about to turn 4. I've been able to stay with them, whenever I wanted to to give them life experiences and to love them as much as as humanly possible. And that was all really the design that I had for my job and my career, was to be free to work when I wanted to work, not when I had to work. And there's so many different ways that people have been able to do that. And everyone kind of has their different goals and priorities and things like that. But I think it's important that that everyone individually sort of makes those opportunities. We started a nonprofit last year for a Haitian orphanage that we've supported for the last 10 years. And pairing between that, supporting that with my time, and with starting this passion project for Find Your Freedom to help entrepreneurs, now that my daughters are going to be in school and I'm going to have more free time, there's nothing that I can think of that I'd rather be doing than talking with super interesting, inspirational people and sharing their stories with my best friend, my cousin. And I think it's such a cool thing. And I just feel so fortunate. And I know you feel the same way, how excited you are now that we've locked in the idea and the name for the podcast. And now we already have, a ton of people lined up to be on it. And just the people we've already talked to. I mean, we finish these podcasts sometimes, it's just like, man, that's such a cool story. I had no idea that that's how it worked out.
Yeah, many of these people we've known for years, and we're finding out new things that we never knew or talked to them about because of the goal of and the objective of this podcast and what we're trying to get out of these interviews. I mean, I think one thing too, going back to, when I left and took the leap, the timing was amazing because my bills were so low and I was able to take on a little bit more risk. And I think that's one thing too that will come up as a theme over and over is take the swings while you're young. You can still do it even if you're later in your life. You can still do it even if your bills are a little bit higher. You just may have to come at it a different way and maybe do side hustle for a while before you take that leap.
Right.
But the more you can take those swings earlier on in life, the easier it is to take a risk and then potentially fall down and get back up. And I think that there's folks that are out there right now that will be listening that are 5 years, 10 years, 15 years behind you, where you and I are today. And we hope to compress that timeline so that it doesn't take them the next 10 to 15 years to get to where we are. And hopefully they can do it in a much shorter time frame without having to repeat the mistakes of the entrepreneurs that are going to come and talk about the mistakes that they made.
Yeah, we can give a roadmap to the people looking to do those things. And I want to make sure, I think it can be easier when you're younger, but it's definitely doable as you get older also. Because we're talking to some entrepreneurs that, like you said, they had their corporate job and then on the side, they started these other things and they really just found ways to make it happen while minimizing the risk. And I think that's what's cool about the podcast. It's going to show all the different ways you can do it because all these people have done it. And to learn from people much smarter than us that have done these things, I think is a really, really cool opportunity. And we're super excited to share in their stories. So thank you so much for listening to our first episode of the Find Your Freedom podcast. Doug and I are really excited to share these stories. And we look forward to building a community of entrepreneurs to support each other that are able to help everyone live the life they want and to find the freedom that they're looking for.
Thank you.